Welcome, everybody. Hello. Thanks for being here. This is Spirit Matters coming at you live from the Bhakti Center's Amrita Boutique, which is where I'm sitting right now. Not because we are having a special boutique episode, but this is just where I happen to be this morning. Sitting here, I'm at the Bhakti Center. My wife is in Jersey right now, dropping off our little pup with his Gigi, my father-in-law, because we're planning to take a couple of short trips coming up. Helping a friend this weekend in the Dominican Republic. It'll be my first time going there. My good friend is leading a retreat there, and she invited me to come for a couple of the last days. Although she said I was a surprise and she didn't tell the participants. So if any of the participants are listening to this podcast, I'm sorry, although I'm doubtful that you are. Hare Krishna. So I'll be gone. So this Thursday and Friday, we're not going to be able to have a show. So it's just today and tomorrow. And then I get back on Tuesday. And then on Friday of next week, I go to India for the shortest trip I've ever taken to India, just a week-long trip going in and out for my friend Rukmini's wedding. Rukmini, who we had on the show, as a guest on the show a couple of weeks ago, is getting married and is doing so in Vrindavan, India. And so I'm going to show up for that. And, Indian weddings, they're like, somebody asked me, what day is the wedding? And I said, I honestly don't actually know what day the wedding is. I know I know I'm going to be there the whole week, and it's like a 5-day affair. So I'm assuming it's at the end of the week. But anyways, that's my journeys coming up over the next couple of weeks. And we're here. We're here in Spirit Matters. And I'm glad that you're here. I'm so grateful that you're here. Because this is where we're meant to be, right here, right now. I think that's a big part of spiritual growth, is settling into the idea that I am where I'm meant to be. And wrestling with that very intensely. It's very hard sometimes to accept that I'm where I'm meant to be. And I think it gets us in, it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one because sometimes I think, what's the difference between accepting that I am where I'm meant to be and also like in surrender and also being agents of change and recognizing, and not just becoming complacent, not just settling for less. Like sometimes I'm meant to move myself from where I am currently. And I'm not just supposed to stay here and take, maybe there's abuse, or maybe I'm just being lazy. Maybe I'm using surrender as an excuse to not show up in life. Anybody ever feel or worry about that? Everybody see somebody else. All these things are a lot easier to see in other people, right? It's a lot harder to see it in ourselves. Maybe I'm using surrender as an excuse for not showing up in life. Leslie put in the chat here, we have a live Zoom audience, action versus inaction. And this 4th chapter is a lot about action and inaction, or the Sanskrit word is karma and akarma in the Bhagavad Gita. And so that's why previously in the 3rd chapter of the Gita, Krishna talks about how important it is to understand our nature, our human psychological, emotional nature in this world, and that it's bhakti is such an active process because it's through pursuing, it's in living out our dharma in this life that the ego gets chiseled the way that it needs to. We discover the things we need to discover about ourselves when we lead the life that Krishna has laid out for us to lead. And so it's really becomes about listening. So you are where you are right now. Maybe you need to stay where you are. Maybe you need to change, but we don't know that unless we tune in and listen deeply to the divine messages that are coming at us regularly, which is why we're here. Not so that you can get your divine message from me. I'm just a squawk box in your consciousness. So don't necessarily think that I've got anything transcendental to impart, but we do read Bhagavad Gita and we bring sacred literature into the conversation, which is our saving grace. And even a squawk box like me can turn into a transcendental jukebox that's playing whatever it is you need to hear. And as they say in 12-step rooms, take what you like and leave the rest, meaning that each of us have different messages that we're meant to receive at different times in our life. So we've been reading the 4th chapter of the Gita, the 2 verses that we left off on, verses 10 and 11, because they're such great verses. I'll read them again. Being freed from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me and taking refuge in me, Many, many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attained transcendental love for me. It's Krishna speaking, talking about love is the goal. And we can talk a lot about that. I gave a Bhagavatam class this morning to the Bhakti Center, all about that topic. And we've been speaking a lot about that. So I'll move on from that. Text 11, as all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Pritha. It was George Harrison that said, everyone's looking for Krishna. Some realize it and some don't. Because we're all looking and yearning for connection. It was Russell Brand who said the opposite of addiction is connection. And so a lot of times the things that get us in trouble in this world, like the things that drag us down, our vices, are actually our unsuccessful solutions to feeling disconnected. A lot of our vices, a lot of our anger, a lot of our unwanted habits are our unsuccessful solutions towards dealing with feelings of disconnection. And so Krishna is going to be speaking about that here and talking about how when we take the time to really, yesterday we talked about what is it that I really want? And sometimes the thing that I think I want isn't what I really want. What I really want is what I think the thing that I want will give me. I think I got that right. I think that was a Dr. Seuss book sometime. Dr. Seuss, the thing that you want. It's not what you think. So Krishna goes on in verse 12. People in this world. So people meaning in this world, people in material consciousness, people who are so engrossed with a hazy way of thinking. I've got on like muddied glasses. I'm looking through a muddied filter. And therefore I desire success in fruitive results. I'm desiring success in fruitive results, meaning I think that connection is on the other side of the rainbow of material pursuits. Once I get the relationship, once I get the career, once I get the followers, once I get, whatever it might be. And therefore, this concept is put here, therefore they worship the demigods. And so higher beings. And we experience that even in this life. Anybody tries to climb the corporate ladder somewhere, you got to suck up to certain people, or you got to sort of, you got to express a fealty towards certain people in order to kind of get ahead, or we idolize certain people in this world, whether they become sports athletes or whether they are business gurus or whether they are celebrities and entertainment demigods. We worship them in a certain way. The Church of Elvis. Quickly, of course, people get results from fruitive work in this world. And so we're talking about quick fixes. We're talking about quick fixes versus genuine satisfactions of the heart. And a spiritualist is somebody who becomes tired enough of the quick fixes in this world to ask, what the heck is lasting? I don't want empty calories anymore. I want real nutrients. Yes, I could eat pancakes for breakfast with whatever high fructose syrup they got on the shelf these days. And I feel like I get a burst of energy, but it's not real sustenance. It's not real sustenance. It's just empty calories. It's a sugar rush. Material enjoyment in this world in many ways is like a sugar rush. That's just kind of like, woo, I feel like I got a bunch of energy, but then it deflates and it kind of comes back and I feel more tired than when I began. I feel more lonely than when I began. I feel more disconnected than when I began. And we get confused and we think, I just need another shot of pancakes. I need a little bit more syrup. Or I need a different brand. Or maybe I need French toast or waffles, and realizing like, you're just getting different flavors of empty calories. And therefore Queen Kunti so beautifully prays in the Srimad Bhagavatam that, oh, my supreme beloved, you are easily approachable. That's good to know. But The caveat, only by those who are materially exhausted. Those who are on the path, who are intoxicated, muddan, the word used in Sanskrit, there's actually a word mudda, meaning like mad. I wonder if that's where we get the word mad. I'm mad after something. Mohan, illusion. The idea that I am covered in an illusion of, she gives four things: wealth, beauty, like high parentage, like feeling like I'm superior because I was born in a family, classism, racism, nationalism, these isms that just because of where I was born and the family that I was born of, the womb that I came out of, that makes me superior in some way. And intelligence to the extent, and all of these things. The problem is that not that these things are inherently a problem: material beauty, material wealth, being born in any particular family, or knowledge. But it's when these things invoke a sense of superiority of myself over others, then I know that I'm in material consciousness and I'm not using them in the right way. And now they've become an impediment to my spiritual life. The thing itself isn't an impediment. It's the way in which I relate to it that becomes an impediment. And she warns, it's very easy for these things to become impediment because they are intoxicating by nature. They bind us to the conception of, this is what gives me value. Ever ask yourself the question, what gives me value? And sometimes we do things in life just because I want to be valuable to somebody else. I learn a skill. I become people pleasers. People pleasers, i.e. all of us. We go about it in a way because I want to be valuable in someone's life. I inherently don't trust or believe in my own worth. And I need to become valuable to somebody else by doing favors, by extending myself, overly extending myself in circumstances so that somebody wants to keep me around. And so Queen Kunti is warning in the Bhagavatam that these things have a tendency to confuse us about what our real value is. Yes, some people are just have natural beauty, although beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. What does that even mean? I always find it interesting. You go and look at that Renaissance era paintings in Europe, Renaissance era paintings. You look at how they depict people, especially women. They're not thin, ultra thin figures. They're more full in their figures. The idea of beauty in Renaissance Europe, and even throughout parts of India, sometimes I've seen this. It's very embarrassing, actually. Indian men who are recently arrived in America, we've had very, very very uncomfortable situations that we had to address, because sometimes if a woman gains weight, it's considered to be very healthy. And so an Indian man will sometimes compliment a woman who's gained weight and think oh, you've gained some weight, you're looking very healthy, I'm very happy for you, And so we've had instances in our community where a man will come up to a Western woman and be like, oh, I see you've gained some weight, you look very healthy, I'm very happy for you. And she gets totally offended and just be like, how could you say that? Oh my God, and why are you commenting on my weight in the first place? Whether I'm losing, gaining, it's none of your business. You know what I mean? But they're thinking actually it's a standard of beauty for a woman to have a certain fullness of figure. It's only until recently that we've developed this concept of just unhealthy. And where did it come from? It came from the beauty industry. Create an unattainable standard of beauty and then sell products that get people to try and chase it. And if it's unobtainable, then you'll always have something to sell. And so even the idea of beauty in the eye of the beholder, beauty is relative. You go throughout cultures and throughout time periods, and you find various standards of beauty. But striving for beauty, wanting to have a beautiful figure or to be able to feel that you have some sense of beauty is not wrong. But it's when I think that that's what gives me value. Wanting to be learned and have knowledge and being naturally academic and scholastic and intellectual is not wrong. But when I think that's my superpower that puts me above the rest, then I'm falling into the trap of the ego. Wealth, wanting to have wealth, material comforts, and wanting to be able to gain and achieve in this world, it's not a bad thing. But when I become so attached to it that I lose my sense of self, that I live in New York. It's been a while. God, it's been like 15 years since the 2008 financial crisis. And we've had multiple various recessions along the way. But I know people specifically that were millionaires that became, in their eyes, quote unquote, nobodies because they lost all of their money in the crisis of 2008 in the financial crisis. They had to sell their house on Martha's Vineyard. They had to get rid of their midtown apartment in Manhattan and get an apartment somewhere in Jersey. And it felt like the end of the world. When realizing like there's a lot of people that live in apartments in Jersey and are quite happy. Thank you very much. But because the sense of identity was attached to that aspect of my being, my wealth, my beauty, my intellect. What is it? Bruce Willis, has dementia, and his family, Demi Moore was one of his ex-wife, the mother of one or multiple of his children. They shared, I think it was his birthday recently, and they were just asking for privacy and support. Bruce Willis, Die Hard, the epitome action hero of the 90s, he's no longer there. His mental faculty is deteriorating. My grandfather had dementia. My grandmother-in-law, my wife's grandmother, her Baba, died during COVID. She got COVID, but it's like, she's a COVID death, but really she had dementia. She was in a home. They were waiting for her to go away, and she would come over in the holidays, and it's like, she's no longer there, And so our mental faculty will deteriorate at some point. It doesn't diminish the value of my soul. But if I become attached to that, I haven't seen that movie, but I want to. Still Alice with, what's her name? What's the actress's name? Marilyn Moore, something more. Forget, what is it? I don't know. I forget what it is. Leslie's got it. She's going to put it in the chat here. Put it in. But it's a Julianne Moore. Yeah, Julianne Moore. Where she, it's a story of somebody who is diagnosed with Alzheimer's. She's diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and the family just literally, and like, what happens is you get diagnosed, and so what happens is it's coming, and it's just like, and it's the acceptance of her and her family, like, she is going to gradually, literally lose her material mind. And like, how do you cope with that? Knowing that that's coming for me, or coming for my loved one, coming for my mother, or for my wife, or for my daughter, or for my friend, and it's just the coping of it, It's one of those movies that somebody, like my wife doesn't like to watch these movies, like they're too sad. I'm like, I don't know. I get really into them. I think just because it's the human experience, because I could use them in the podcast. I get to use the movie in the podcast. But it's real. Some of you have gone through this. Like I said, my grandmother-in-law had dementia. My own grandfather had dementia. And so it's like, when I, at a certain point, whether it's through material illness or just old age or whatever, or beauty, my body gets old, my wealth gets taken away, and all of a sudden I don't know who I am anymore. And so Queen Kunti's saying that if we're attached to these things, like the path to transcendence is quite easy as long as we're not holding on to the baggage of this material world. So when Krishna says in the Gita that if I'm just desiring the quick fixes, sure, I'll get the quick fixes. I can hustle and get some money. I can torture myself and get my waist size down. I can read and study and try to one-up people with how many verses I know, like whatever it is, bring my material consciousness right into my spiritual life. But all you'll get is quick results. You're just eating pancakes for breakfast. And you're going to get tired and need a nap later on. And when you wake up from that nap, are you just going to go back to another round of pancakes? I love pancakes, by the way. I'm not saying that I'm not down on pancakes, especially if they're buckwheat camp pancakes with organic date compote. What about those pancakes, Dial? Well, maybe it's a different story. I'm just saying in general, fill in the blank, whatever those empty calories are. And recognizing that Krishna's saying that that's not, you'll get what you're looking for. I'm a believer that we find what we're looking for. And that's true of people. We find what we're looking for. If you're looking for the faults in others, you'll find the faults in others. And if you're looking for the good in others, you'll find the good in others. If you're looking for cheap tricks and quick fixes in the material world, you'll find them. And if you're looking for genuine, lasting meaning and connection, Krishna is saying, and he'll unravel it. That's the message of the Gita, Krishna's song to us, is that there's a path there. But you just have to be willing to let certain things go, take your time with it, and be able to harness the power of your attention and focus towards me, towards truth, towards light, and be willing to stumble and fall every day and get back up, dust yourself off, because as Krishna says, there is no loss or diminution on this path. Any spiritual step you take forward will never be erased. You may take a few steps back before you get there again, or you may pause and wait until you take your next step. That's okay. That credit, that endeavor is never lost. It's never erased because it's on the spiritual platform. It's eternal. And so we're constantly taking our steps forward. And so I encourage you, I implore you, I beg you, same way I beg myself every day, keep taking those steps forward. Don't let shame, guilt, embarrassment, judgment kill your devotional inspiration and tell you that you're not good enough, you're not going fast enough, you'll never get there. Those are all material considerations. And Krishna is calling us back ever so gently, ever so sweetly, ever so steadily. And so we are making our way back home. And I'm so glad that we're making our way back home together. And I appreciate you all intensely. And Sydney wrote in the chat, it's really scary. Yeah, when we're talking about those things, we're joking about it a little bit, but those things, material illness, material poverty, losing whatever we're holding on to material, it's scary. And for spiritualists, as we try to grow in our spiritual life, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden it becomes easy, but we have another perspective. All the pieces go back in the box eventually anyways. It's just a matter of when and how. When and how is this all going to wrap up? And so when that comes, do I grip and hold on do I white knuckle it? Or do I see, wow, okay, Krishna's giving me an opportunity here. It's painful. It's hard. It's exhausting. It feels never ending, but I am given an opportunity here. And you find this in ways, I've seen it. I've seen it firsthand when devotees pass away in their own lives and they just feel so grateful. Feel so grateful for the opportunity to let go of so many things that have been holding them down and to be surrounded in the shelter of Krishna's holy name and Krishna's instructions, and to be able to I'm taking my next step. Thank you, Krishna. It's powerful. It's hard, but we all have that opportunity. Hare Krishna. Martha said, I don't know how many more steps I still have ahead on me, but I'm confident the journey will be worth it. Yes, it will. It very much is. And so thank you for taking this step today. That's all the time we got. Now we're turning it over to Kimberly, our Wrap It Up Acharya, who takes all the ramblings and rants that I threw at you and tries to organize them as much as possible into a few little takeaways. And what do you got for us, Kimberly?
Thanks, Dayal. Today we're taking away that on the other side of the rainbow of material pursuits isn't true connection.
Mm.
Material enjoyment is like an intoxicating sugar rush that can confuse us of our real value. And we can get tired of the quick fixes and empty calories, so it's important to feast on the real nutrients, like those buckwheat pancakes.
Buckwheat pancakes with organic date compote.
Yeah. And we always find what we're looking for.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm just carrying that takeaway over for me today of, like, what is it that I'm really looking for? And where do I honestly think that I'll find it? And so I love all you guys. I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for being here, for listening, for tuning in. Please join us every day. We love this little beautiful family that we have. If you'd like to join our live family on Zoom, you can write to us at spiritmatters@bhakticenter.org or just go on our website and find, I think there's Zoom information there. We have a WhatsApp group if you want to get updates on the WhatsApp group. And just overall, be in touch. We love you. We're grateful for you. Share it with a friend. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.